Welcome back to National Post Radio with Anthony Furey. Canada Talks, Sirius XM 167.
Look, I know there's a lot in NAFTA, a lot of different things that can be discussed. So when we're hearing a whole bunch of different messages and tunes, maybe that's okay. It can all be factored in. But I got to say, the whole thing kind of seems like it lacks focus. Chrystia Freeland sending out a promotional video pointing out that the hundreds of times that various Canadian representatives have gone down to the U.S., met with so many levels of the administration, state representatives, bureaucrats, and so forth. And hats off to them. I think this is where Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and his office and his key team, they've done their best on. I think this is the issue that he has succeeded the most on in a nonpartisan way, and I give him a lot of credit. I was a little frustrated to see these. They were saying, one of their big asks is environmental, climate changey stuff and gender equality and diversity. Guys, come on, like you can go on, have those values. We know you do your hashtag feminism, but that's not what NAFTA is about. NAFTA is getting good jobs and trade deals for Canadians so we can all prosper together. Bizarre distraction there. And then Donald Trump messaging, I don't know if distraction is the right term to call it. He campaigns on tearing it up. Okay, fine. Then he comes into office. No, he's going to renegotiate. He's going to tweak. Okay, fine. And then we get the document from Robert Lighthizer saying these are our asks. I go, those aren't tweaks. Those are big asks. Then we have the week of meetings where it seems like there is a sticking point on a number of issues, including country of origin rules and also Buy American. What is going on here, especially now that Donald Trump's saying at that rally, maybe he will tear it up after all. We're joined now by Elliot Tepper, who's Distinguished Senior Fellow at the Norman Paterson School of International Affairs and Senior Research Fellow for the Center for Security and Defense Studies. Good morning, Elliot. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Anthony. Good morning to you.
And you can hear in my summary that I think I would be lying to say that I knew how to adequately, assess exactly where we are right now. It's very much unclear.
Well, I think where we are is in the pre-negotiating seriously phase where posturing is going on, staking out a preliminary positions. The key thing all along has been, will this be an economic renegotiation handled by professionals, in which case, and there's professionals on all sides at the table, Canada should do quite well. But if it turns out that the President of the United States needs a win as his support base dwindles and he's besieged, and he decides to chalk up a win by saying, I've kept my promise, I'm going to rip up NAFTA, then we have something coming in basically from above and outside the negotiations that could indeed threaten NAFTA itself.
It would seem bizarre to me that he would. He campaigned on tearing it up and he won, so fine. But we're having all these meetings, as Chrystia Freeland points out. We've had hundreds of meetings. It's kind of like saying, "Hey, do you want to come over for dinner?" And we're like, "Okay, sure." And then we get there and they're like, "No, we're not home. Haha, tricked you." It's just kind of like, why even have the negotiations then? If you want to tear it up, just tear it up.
Well, clearly the American president does not wish to tear up NAFTA. Or we would not be having the negotiations.
Right.
The position of the Americans is, well, if we can get a better deal, then we'll go ahead, but only if we get a better deal. Let's keep in mind Canada's doing posturing. Canada's also said, with pretty specific reference to the sticking point to the Chapter 19 dispute resolution mechanism, well, if we don't get what we want, we just might pull out. We did before when this was being negotiated, and we almost walked out then. So there's positioning by all sides. They're quite different, let's say, temperaments or styles between Canada and the U.S. Leadership, of course, is going to show up. But all sides are now saying we will threaten the existence of this, at least I think let's talk a bit about Mexico. There's an election coming there, and everybody wants to get NAFTA signed before a new president might come in who's equally bombastic as the American president in terms of rhetoric. So the posturing that's going on may not be what we actually end up seeing, but it does mean very tough negotiations with a political specter hanging over them.
We're joined now by Elliot Tepper, Distinguished Senior Fellow at the Norman Paterson School of International Affairs. One thing, Elliot, that did alarm me was there's these Buy American provisions where Donald Trump's saying, okay, we want all sort of projects done here and American government projects to have, as much American parts as possible. Fine. And then you can like it or dislike it, but whatever, that's their projects. And then they're saying they want greater access to Canadian and Mexico projects. So the exact opposite of what we want. I mean, that doesn't sit well with me. No, and it doesn't sit well with anyone. But again,
there's used to be an ad saying you don't get what you deserve, you get what you negotiate. That jumped out at me in the initial list released by the U.S. The U.S. has to, the person responsible has to tell Congress, and we'll have to come back to that, tell Congress what the American position is. And in that, the Buy America jumped out at me. It's going to be protected. Also, defense procurement, which is a big ticket item. So, yes, Canada has done an excellent job of preempting the possibility that there will be just a blundering into some kind of tearing this up by mobilizing the forces in the United States. This is an educational process for Canada as well. Did we know that 36 states have Canada as their major trading partner, and that, billions go across the border every day? That, for example, did we know that, according to one estimate, the United States buys more oil from Canada than just about all the other states in the world combined, all the big ones? And very importantly, Canada has mobilized allies at the governor's level, including Wisconsin, where there's an icon of the Republican Party, Scott Wilson. He's come out and said, we like this. Wisconsin, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and Michigan are top partners for Canada. So all of this is coming to the fore. It's good education for us. It also should play in. We should have to keep in mind that, Anthony, that this is an agreement passed by Congress. So the American president can threaten to tear it up, but it's actually an agreement with Congress, and Congress can just say, no, we like it.
Ellie, before I let you go, I got to ask, we've seen a number of cases where the president seems like he's doing a bad cop, good cop routine, where he's the bad cop and he's making sort of larger kind of threats, the broader sales, and then his team go and they're kind of finessing the details and soften it down and so forth. Are you optimistic that we can get this sort of more or less happy resolution out of NAFTA?
Yes. One of the issues, of course, is the politics of it. Again, if this is an economic renegotiation, I think we will do quite well, and I think it'll be successful because it did need modernizing. Things that were outside need to be brought in. The TPP negotiations included all three states of NAFTA, and they agreed on a lot of the NAFTA modernizations. But if the president is worried about Mexico and he's worried about Arizona and he's worried about playing to his dwindling base, then none of the economics will end up mattering.
Elliot Tepper, we always appreciate your insights. Thanks for joining us again.
You're very welcome, Anthony.
Elliot Tepper, Distinguished Senior Fellow at the Norman Paterson School of International Affairs and Research Fellow at the Center for Security and Defense Studies, talking about NAFTA. Ding, ding. Round one is over. Several more rounds to go, including one coming up here in Ottawa shortly. What a wild headline. Christopher Columbus statue smashed in Baltimore. So we've had the drama about whether or not the General Robert E. Lee statue should be torn down. Confederate general, it was. This is from The Hill, a major website in the U.S., a news site. A 225-year-old monument commemorating Christopher Columbus was vandalized early Monday amid the nationwide debate on removing Confederate statues and monuments. A video posted on Monday shows the monument being smashed. It shows two unidentified people taping a sign reading, "The future is racial and economic justice." One of them then hits the monument with what appears to be a sledgehammer, while the other stands next to the monument holding a sign that reads, "Racism, tear it down." Christopher Columbus symbolizes the initial invasion of European capitalism into the Western Hemisphere. Columbus initiated a centuries-old wave of terrorism, murder, genocide, rape, slavery, ecological degradation, and capitalist exploitation of labor in the Americas, the narrator, who identifies himself as Ty, says. 225-year-old monument about Christopher Columbus in Baltimore, torn down. It's one thing when people are blogging on you're sitting in the Starbucks and blogging and saying, oh, America is, it's invaded and evil capitalism taking us over and history, centuries of rape. And it's another thing when these people take their words and turn them into action and they are smashing historical artifacts. This is what ISIS does, people. Christopher Columbus, a statue, a plaque of Christopher Columbus. It happened. This is just nuts. I can't believe it. It's one thing to talk about a Confederate general and the slavery issue and so forth that happened, I guess, not too long ago. Christopher Columbus. These nuts smashed a 225-year-old monument. Well, why don't we go into the Royal Ontario Museum? Because there's probably a couple dodgy, prejudiced, racist people there who made some of those 10,000-year-old artifacts. Why don't we just start smashing that? Why don't we just set fire to... Why don't we just, a few of us get in a rocket and we go up to space and the rest of the Earth, let's just let North Korea nuke us all. Why not? Why not? This is Sirius XM Canada Talks, Channel 167. I'm Anthony Fury. Lots more coming up. What is the future of Steve Bannon? One American media watcher joins us in just a moment.
What do you want to